I am realizing we accidentally cut off the entire Joys and Concerns and my section in the order of service.
Oh no.
Not sure how that happened.
I don't know either. So I didn't even grab an order of service.
Well, apparently it's not very reliable this week. So.
Oh dear.
And what's strange is I definitely saw a draft of it that had all those things included because I
So
checked
I
it.
have it in here.
No idea.
Well, Randy will leave that in. Right, so
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Basically, ours goes just from him to offertory in the order of service, so it's kind of a big chunk there,
I
actually.
didn't grab one of those. Yeah. Do you? No, we're having. I mean, two. And I have the. Yeah.
We are still going to do those.
They're in.
Right.
But yeah.
Our revision gets very exciting. I think that things down in the field somehow.
Good morning. Welcome. My name is Amy Collins. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a worship associate and a commissioned lay minister of this congregation, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Cleveland. We acknowledge that we're gathering on the original lands of the Erie and of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, also known as the Three Fires Council. We recognize the need to learn more about these complex and sometimes painful histories, to care for the land we inhabit, and to show respect for the diverse peoples and cultures who preceded us, as well as those who gather here now. We welcome all of who you are, whether you're feeling fierce and feisty or cautious and contemplative. We're here in all of our brokenness and with our limitless potential. Sometimes we come limping in, literally or figuratively, in need of support and fortification, and sometimes we come overflowing with gratitude and connected to the love and abundance in our lives, ready to lift up those around us. We don't ask you to check any aspect of who you are at our door. We ask you to come with your complicated lives, your willing hearts and open minds, and to be in community with us. Come in person, join us online live, or whenever you need us or want a little inspiration by visiting our archive services on YouTube and Facebook. As Unitarian Universalists, we're a pluralist faith grounded in love, committed to justice, and sharing a collective spiritual journey that looks different for each of us. We're happy to have you join us whether you celebrate the earth, the goddess, love Jesus, follow the teachings of the Buddha, or find your inspiration and comfort from the reliability of science or humanist teachings. If you're new to us and interested in more information about who we are, fill out one of the guest cards in the pew rack in front of you and place it in the offering plate when it comes around later in the service. Then you'll receive our email newsletter, and you can let us know if you want us to reach out to you and answer any questions you might have about our congregation. And you can also visit our website, uucleveland.org. We're about to enter into sacred space, so please take a moment to silence your phones or any other electronic devices that go beep. We're getting ready to light our chalice, and we have the pleasure of having Astrid Burkle do that this morning. Astrid wants you to know that she has been coming to this congregation for 6 years. She participates in our religious education program. Outside of here, she's involved in theater, music. She thinks of this as a place to come to help grow her mind, and she loves to light fires. Hopefully little fires like chalices. Please join me in our chalice lighting words that are on the yellow card in your pew racks. We cultivate trust with one another by celebrating differences, honoring boundaries, and offering compassion and care. We listen to each other deeply with curiosity and wonder. We speak for ourselves without need to defend ourselves or persuade each other. We create safe and brave space for healthy conflict, creativity, and fun. We reconcile through forgiving and making amends when we hurt one another. On this sixth Sunday of Chalica, we're reminded of our sixth principle, that we covenant to affirm and promote the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. This principle appears in the proposed revision we're exploring this year in the specific value of justice as well as the value of equity, by which we declare that every person has the right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. This principle is also reflected in the call for Unitarian Universalist congregations to be actively engaged in the transformation of the world through liberating love.
Thank you, Astrid. Thank you, Amy. Good morning. I am the Reverend Randy Partain. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm delighted to be in worship with you today, whether you're joining us here in person or online. Hear these words adapted from Reverend Rebecca Savage. We gather today with sacred intention to affirm in covenant with beloved community that it is possible. Perhaps not here, not quite yet, but the seeds have been planted time and again, and we remember all those who went before us that made beloved community in our time a dream that could be realized. May our time together continue to water the budding trees of our diverse interdependence. May our time together give air and nourishment to the parts of our collective spirits that need to grow and thrive in order to embrace equity as a known way of being. May it be so. Let us worship together. We are going to sing Siyahamba, a song that comes out of a South African passionate quest for equity and justice. And the words are in your order of service, but you don't probably need them. Mike Carney is going to lead us in singing that. And so if you would prefer to keep your hands free, this would be a great song to do that. I know that the translation of this is "We are marching in the light of God," but if that word is something that doesn't work as well for you, you can substitute love or any other one-syllable word that you have for the divine. You can substitute in that place. So we're going to do that in just a moment. But before we do, I invite you to take a moment and greet those around you. If you see a face that you don't recognize, please make a special effort to let them feel welcome today.
Good, thanks. Good morning. We're going to sing Siyahamba. We're going to do a little call and response. So I'll sing and you sing back to me. Remember, we are going for inspiration and celebration and not necessarily perfection. So as the Spirit moves you, just repeat after me. Siyahamba. Siyahamba ekukhanyen kwenkhos. Siyahamba. Let's try that one again. Siyahamba ekukhanyen kwenkhos. Siyahamba ekukhanyen kwenkhos. You sing that. Siyahamba ekukhanyen kwenkhos. We are marching in the light of God. Caminando en la luz de Dios. Caminando en la luz de Dios. Siyahamba. Let's sing the song. Ready? Here we go. Siyahamba ekukhanyen kwenkhos. Siyahamba ekukhanyen kwenkhos. Feel free to march if you want. Siyahamba ekukhanyen kwenkhos. Siyahamba ekukhanyen kwenkhos. Siyahamba, Siyahamba, Siyahamba ekukhanyen kwenkhos. Siyahamba, Siyahamba, Siyahamba. We are marching, and we are marching in the light of God. 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 We are marching, we are marching, we are marching in the light of God. We are marching, marching, we are marching, we are marching. Caminando en la luz de Dios, 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 caminando, nando. Caminando en la luz de Dios, caminando, vamos caminando. We are singing in the light of God. 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 We are singing, singing, we are singing. We are singing in the light of God. Like you mean it, we are singing, singing. Ooh, we are singing. We are dancing. We are dancing in the light of God. 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 We are dancing, dancing, we are dancing. We are dancing in the light of God. We are, that's right. I like those moves. Dancing in the light. Siyahamba, Siyahamba ekukhanyen kwenkhos. Siyahamba ekukhanyen kwenkhos. Siyahamba ekukhanyen kwenkhos. Siyahamba ekukhanyen kwenkhos. Siyahamba, Siyahamba. Siyahamba ekukhanyen kwenkhos. Siyahamba. Siyahamba ekukhanyen kwenkhos. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, choir, all of the big choir out there. We take time each Sunday to acknowledge the joys and concerns that we bring into community together. If you're joining us online today, I invite you to put any joys or concerns that you want to share with the congregation in the comments so that we'll be able to see them. If you're here in person, we have our Joy and Concern book that people are able to write in if there's something that they want to share. And this week we just have one thing in the book, which is a stone of healing for Kate Greenfield following knee replacement surgery. So, healing for Kate. I invite you to come forward with any other concerns or joys that you're carrying with you today and place a stone in the water to represent them. I'll just remind you that we've got a wonderful brunch after the service, and so if you want to share a little more with the people at your table about what's going on in your life, you'll have an opportunity to do that there. Come forward if you will. we place a stone for those joys and concerns shared online today. And I was wondering why it was so empty up here, and I'm realizing that we had a celebration of life yesterday, and they reserved these front 2 pews, and we never took the signs away. So I don't know if this is a stone for grace in things that get missed that can be redeemed, but maybe it's a stone for a little bit of space that we need from time to time. Whatever it is, we'll put a stone in there. And may we remember that in the sharing of our joys and concerns, we make them more than just our personal joys and concerns and extend them out to a community of care so that our burdens might be lessened and our joys might be magnified.
Well, good morning. So we are talking about equity this month. Equity, and I was thinking about all the many different ways in which issues around equity show up in our world, but the one that I think is probably most common, most often we're going to run into is just the good old-fashioned line, just a line of people. One of our more equitable scenarios in our day-to-day life. So I need like 7 or 8 people who are willing to help model a line for us up here. To have a few people who are willing to come up, please. Just a few of us willing to stand in line for a little bit. Just a few, 7 or 8 would be great. I see a few coming up. And what's remarkable here is that we're going to see the benefits and the downfalls of line making. Let's have it. We can have it sort of lined up over here. And here we're seeing kind of how a line gets formed, right? It is pretty equitable. There's some downfalls to it, of course, just a little bit because, who got in the front of the line had to do with where you were in the room. So not perfectly equitable. Almost nothing is ever perfectly equitable, right? But this is, how it goes. So Astrid at the front, Carl in the back. What's useful about a line is that it requires sort of negotiation and courtesy. Like if 2 people arrived at the same time, you'd have to be like, well, no, you go ahead. It's fine. A little negotiation. That's a good habit for a world where we prize equity. At the same time, lines are annoying, right? Because like, Carl, you're at the back of the line. This is annoying, right? There's all these other people. Does this ever happen to us? Are we ever like, why is everyone getting Subway today? Why is this line so long? And I'm running late, and things aren't going very well. So the other thing about lines is that they require some skills. And a line like this requires some patience, a little bit of empathy, understanding, care, to be in a community of people, even just briefly, to be here. But in America, we don't always do equity great, do we? Sometimes we're not really great at equity. So these are some of the habits that sometimes crop up in our lives that are not highly equitable. And here's my favorite example of how we break habits of equity in America. It's if I come to Carl and I say, hey, Carl, if you're interested, I have something called a fast pass. So if you have $5, there's a new line that you could get in that would be ahead of this whole line. Are you interested in that? Would you like to be in the fast pass? Okay, Carl, come with me. There's a new line. All right, Carl, you're up here. Now, if I'm the one who controls the fast pass, is in charge of the line, I'm like, you know what, Astrid's probably not interested in the fast pass because Astrid's at the front. So I'm going to come back to Jess and be like, hey, Jess, would you like to be in the fast pass line?
The long line? Yeah.
Yeah, you'd prefer, okay, so Jess is going up. All right. So now we have 2 lines. Does this feel very equitable? We've broken our boundaries of equity, haven't we? And then let's say we were in this situation for a little bit longer. Then I said, you know what, Jess? For $10, there's actually
Easy.
Fast Pass Express. And that's going to put you in a whole, you don't even have to wait in line. As long as you sign up, you're all set. There's 7 people here, right? There's shared resources, patience, empathy, or how do we get to the front of the line? Those are the questions, right? These are the ones that are in front of us. You all have been fantastic line standers. I so appreciate this. Thank you so much for your help. Applause. I feel like I need to immediately, after seeing that object lesson, I have to immediately own, I have in fact fast-passed before. I hope those of us who have been in that situation can feel that. I have broken bonds of equity. I have not been patient, and I have not been empathetic sometimes. As we think about this value this month, the way that we embody and model equity in the world, I hope we can do what we can to remember that equity is this big picture question about the social landscape around us. But it's also there in the habits of our everyday lives and the ways that we act with one another. Equity is hard, intentional work, and it happens in both frameworks.
This week, we are giving our offering to the Northeast Ohio Black Health Coalition. The Northeast Ohio Black Health Coalition is a social justice organization created to address African American disparities in education, employment, housing, and health by providing, seeking to educate, empower, and advocate for health equity. If you look at some of the events going on in their calendar of programming, you'll find opportunities to talk about COVID disparities within the African American community, domestic violence awareness, African American men's health tune-ups, African American women's wellness, and more. We hope that you'll give generously within your means to this important social justice organization as we focus on equity. You can do so by dropping some money into the basket as it comes around, the bowls as they come around, or you can use our Cash App handle, $UUCC 44122. Thanks in advance.
To
share with you this prayer from Reverend Tess Baumberger. Let us make this earth a heaven right here, right now. Who knows what existences death will bring? Let us create a heaven here on earth where love and truth and justice reign. Let us welcome all at our pearly gates, our freedom table, amid singing and rejoicing, black, white, yellow, red, and all our lovely colors, straight, lesbian, gay, bisexual, queer, questioning, cisgendered, transgender, non-binary, gender non-conforming, healthy, sick, hurting, variously abled, young, old, gentle, cranky, joyous, sorrowing. Let no one feel excluded. Let no one feel alone. May all have enough to meet their needs. May all share power generously. May all venerate the earth, our mother, and tend her with wisdom and compassion. May we make our earth an Eden, a paradise. May no one wish to leave her. May hate, violence, and warfare cease to clash in causes too old and tired to name. Religion, nationalism, racism, and false god of gold, deep-rooted ethnic hatreds, may these all disperse and wane. May we see each other's true selves. May we all dwell together in peace and joy and understanding. Let us make a heaven here on earth before it's too late. Let us make this earth a heaven for each other's sake.
First time I read Tess Baumberger's words, I misinterpreted, I misread what she was saying. And in reading over it again, I got it a little more deeply. I'm not sure how you received it. First time I heard those words, I thought it was saying, let's get rid of all of those things that make us fight with each other. Let's make sure all of our differences are washed away so that we can have heaven right here, right now, because we fight about all of the things that set us apart from each other. And then I read it again, and I realized what she was saying is, let's stop fighting about all of those things that we have different from one another. Let's create heaven on earth by choosing not to compete for which one of our ideas is the best idea, and which one of our needs deserves priority, which one of us deserves to be at the front of the line where our needs get met. Let's stop fighting about those things. And then we can start building heaven on earth. Which is really what we are talking about when we talk about a value of equity. Maybe one of the ways that we define how to express a liberating love is to practice a value of equity. I don't know how many other UU churches are doing what we're doing, but I've started hearing from people in other spaces that really want to know about this whole process of exploring the new language for Article 2 as deeply as we are. We've had some really good conversations in the listening circles about how people are receiving these new values, but they're not new values. They're the same values that we've had in our principles for a long time. Equity has been there. It's been in our second principle, kind of sandwiched between some other things, but maybe easy to overlook. It says that we affirm and promote justice, equity, and compassion in our human relationships. Maybe we haven't thought about what that really means. So the language that we are using now to define equity is that we declare that every person has the right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. And we covenant, since we declare that and we practice equity, here's the promise. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities. We're going to use all of our resources to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities. Easy. What's interesting about this promise, this covenant is between us. This is not a covenant that we say we are going to tell the rest of the world how to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities, and we're not going to worry about how we do things here. We're just going to look out at all of the inequities in the world and tell everybody else how they ought to be doing things. That's not what this promise is. In fact, the rest of the world might be inequitable for a long, long, long time, and we could fulfill this covenant if we manage to do the impossible and build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities as Unitarian Universalists. It's a call not to force the culture to do what we want it to do, but to create in a microcosm what we envision for the rest of the world. No small task in and of itself. But we have been doing that here. We have been doing that in a variety of ways. We are on the road. We're not starting from nothing. Our Wednesday suppers are a great example of this. People can show up to a meal. It does not matter if they can contribute to the meal, although the people that can contribute to offset the cost do, and it's been really wonderful. You don't have to have a pot of something that you're bringing. You don't have to have a side dish, but you can sign up on a sign-up Genius, and you can bring something, and you can do it one time if that's what you've got the bandwidth for, or you could do it, month after month after month if that's what you can do. The accessibility is there for you, however you want to participate in that. And honestly, because of the contributions that people are making, we have our hospitality budget is the only budget line that I know of where we have more money in it than what we started with. So we are doing something there that provides food for people, community, opportunity for people to connect with one another, a chance to provide for one another in a way that makes sense for us, that isn't overly burdensome. And if it never makes sense for you to prepare something to bring, and if it never makes sense for you to contribute something to the basket, it doesn't matter. You're still welcome to come and have a meal with us and to share that space. That's what equity looks like. We have some of our leadership teams that are practicing a different way of leading, a different model, a flatter model of collaborative leadership. We have co-chairs on our board now, and they are trying to help the board be a more collaborative community rather than it being one person that gets all the complaints from everybody in the congregation. We have some other groups that are practicing circle method or sociocracy in a way that flattens the leadership model so that it's a shared responsibility to create a sense of equity in the way that we do our ministry, in the way that we do our decision making. The covenant that was unanimously affirmed at the annual meeting, maybe we don't recognize that as being a step toward equity. Maybe we don't all understand the covenant the same way, but that covenant that we read each week as we light our chalice is a way that we pave the path for equity. We say that we covenant to create this is the other thing I was going to say about it. It requires us to learn what we mean by those promises so that we are clear about what one another need. So we covenant to trust one another in our community. We're going to celebrate our differences and honor boundaries and offer compassion and care. That doesn't mean that we all have the same boundaries. It means that when I'm in a space with whoever I'm in a space with here, that I recognize that they have boundaries that don't need to make sense to me, that they don't have to explain to me or justify, but they can just name, this is a boundary that I have, and I can respect that. That's equity, not insisting that we all have the same boundaries, but honoring the boundaries that one another have. Listening to each other deeply with curiosity and wonder, and partnered with that, speaking for ourselves without needing to defend ourselves or persuade each other. This way of talking is something that came up over and over again while we were talking about a covenant and what promises we needed in order to build meaningful, authentic community. And it's different than what we do in a lot of spaces. And I know for a fact that not everyone in the congregation understands those words the same way, because I've had conversations with multiple people over the last few months about what it means to speak without trying to persuade each other. And as I understand it from the conversations we had last year, it doesn't have to be the way you understand it, but as I understand it from your comments, it means that I get to say, here's how I feel about this, here's what I think about this, and you don't have to agree with me, and I don't need you to validate what I think or feel about it. I can just name it and be safe saying, this is what's so for me. And then you can say what's so for you, and I don't have to challenge it, and I don't have to say, well, my way of seeing it is better or right, but we can just have that opportunity to express for one another where we are and how we're feeling and what we're thinking, and be okay with that. And say, isn't that amazing that we have such different ways of seeing it? And if we need to make a decision, then we can talk about where our common ground is, and we can make a decision about how to move forward. But it's an equitable decision that takes into consideration the things expressed by everyone in the room. And in that way, we create safe and brave space so that we can have a healthy conflict and say, the ways that we are seeing this are really different, and we need to come to some sort of resolution. So let's work together to figure out what we're going to do. It's okay to have conflict, but we can have a healthy way of expressing that and be creative and fun in the process. And since we are human beings, we reconcile through forgiving and making amends when we hurt one another. Not if we hurt one another, because I am going to step on some toes, and you're going to step on mine, and it's okay, because we have admitted ahead of time we are doing a different dance than what we have done before. So we're going to hurt one another, we're going to touch on some tender spots, but we can repair it. We are capable of repairing those things. And that does not mean that you corner somebody in coffee hour and say, you hurt me, and I've got a bone to pick with you, and here's why you hurt me, and here's how you hurt me, and then you storm away, because that doesn't repair anything. But it might mean that you let somebody know in coffee hour, there's a really challenging thing that I need to talk with you about, and can we set some time this week for a phone call, or can we go to coffee? It probably is, this thing about forgiving and making amends when we hurt one another is probably more than a 2-minute conversation. Maybe. Maybe it's a little thing. Maybe for you it's a 2-minute conversation. You say, I don't like it the way you said this, and the other person says, I'm so sorry, and you say, it's all right. Maybe that's what that looks like. But if it needs to be a longer conversation, let it be a longer conversation. I wonder what this kind of covenantal preparation for equitable sharing and equitable co-creation offers in other spaces. What would it look like for us to consider those kinds of things in our families? What would it look like to consider those kinds of things in our workplaces? What would it look like to consider those kinds of promises in other organizations where we serve a broader community? To be able to say, we're going to make sure that everybody has space to be heard, and also we're going to honor one another's boundaries in a meaningful way. So what else do we need? We've got a great start. What else will we need in this space? We'll talk about the little things that we can do that are within reach to create equity in our personal lives, and we'll talk about what it looks like to be a moral community in the next couple of weeks. But what do we need here in order to have a fully accessible and inclusive community? What is our work if we are going to live into this word, this value, meaningfully? I'll name a couple of things, but then I want to hear from you. First of all, I know that it is a newer thing to be welcoming young people into our worship space. I know that historically there's been adult space and young people space, and never the twain shall meet, and all of that. I know that's in the history of this community. But we're starting to be more intentional about how we welcome younger people into this worship space and are inclusive of them. And what that means is that sometimes life is going to be a little noisier, and it's okay. And what it means is that sometimes people need to pay attention by doing something with their hands, and some of the people of various ages might do different things. Some people are going to knit or crochet, and some people are going to color in a book, and some people are going to do all kinds of things. But sometimes people need to pay attention by being busy. And some people need to be able to sit and focus on what's happening in the service in a different way. We might need to find the spaces in this room where that's easiest for us to do, but we can be equitable in how we welcome different ways of being together, regardless of what age or what attention span somebody might have. One of the things that has come up multiple times has been our land acknowledgement. I said, when the worship team started to say, we should be doing a land acknowledgement because we are way behind on acknowledging these kinds of things, I said, well, it's okay, but I'm not sure what actions back that up. And we started doing it, and I said, we're going to wait until the congregation gets as uncomfortable with it as the worship team is when we start doing this land acknowledgement, and it feels a little bit like we're saying words that we don't have any action to back up. And our land acknowledgements have been kind of diverse because our worship associates have taken different approaches to what we say. Sometimes when we hear a land acknowledgement, it sounds like we're absolving ourselves. We acknowledge that this land used to belong to somebody else, and some people way before us stole it from them, and now we live on it. And that's just what it is, and that's, not our fault. Some land acknowledgements don't talk about the people that are affected. So one of the things we have talked about as a worship team is there are people living in our area who are descendants of the tribes that used to live on this land and tend this land. I won't say owned this land, because their concept of it at that time was not that they owned the land. Our concept is that we own certain pieces of land. What can we do to be responsible in our relationship with those people, with the people that have identities that go back to the indigenous folks that were on this place? We did something recently by supporting LENAC, which is an organization that helps to preserve the culture of the tribal communities that still exist in this space. We might do more of that. But it's something that we need to wrestle with in terms of equity. How are we going to mean the words that we say when we do the things that we do? What else would mean equity for this community? I am not going to pass the microphone around because I want short. So I'll repeat what you say, but I'm not going to take the microphone and talk for 10 minutes. But short things. What's something that would be equity, that would mean equity here that we may not be doing yet? Frank? We could have sign language. We could have making sure that our captions are really appropriate for people that might need those or appreciate those. Yeah. Make other people feel welcome. Worry. Okay, so think about who's not here yet. Yeah. Create a welcoming space so that when people show up, they feel it.
I think create equity between the people who know each other and new people who don't know anyone by going up to someone you don't know and
so some people have known each other a long time here, and some people are newer to this community, and maybe there's an inequity in how people have access to how we do things and leadership and all of that sort of thing. So a way to create equity is for, if you've been here for a while, then make it a proactive step to talk to somebody that may be newer and make sure that they are finding their way. Don't make that a ministry team responsibility. Make that a responsibility just because you're around here. Yes? More spaces for people in wheelchairs. We have a little bit. I'll tell you one thing. When I look at the chancel area, a fully accessible and inclusive community would not require you to navigate stairs in order to be a worship leader. Okay. Oh, I thought I saw another hand. I saw the leadership development team things. Okay, Nick. So our stewardship campaign is coming up, and Meg is saying the way that we express generosity is going to look different for different people. And so we want to encourage people to give generously with their pledges, but maybe not necessarily in a tiered way that leaves some people feeling, ashamed, less than, yeah. And I said the word ashamed. I'm going to say more about ashame in just a second, yeah? That the language we use and the things that we send out are available to people of different literacy capacities. So some of the things that we might do are making sure that we're not as dependent on written things, like when we sang Siyahamba earlier today. That was a very equitable way to sing a song together because you didn't have to read the words, you didn't have to know it ahead of time, and you got to participate with one another no matter what your singing ability was. That was a pretty equitable thing to do, Mike. How serendipitous. The thing that I want to say about this, we're naming some things that we could improve. We're naming some things that we're already doing a little bit, but that we could do better. This conversation about equity often leaves people feeling a little bit uncomfortable because there's some kind of shame about what we're not doing. It's like there's something wrong with us because we're not perfect. And I'm just going to name, we're not perfect. We're not going to be perfect. There's nothing wrong with not being perfect. We're human beings. Naming these things is casting vision. It's not something we have to be ashamed about not doing yet. It's a thing for us to name. We can aim for this if we want to. Some of the things we name that would be completely equitable are going to be more difficult for us and more challenging for us, and they're going to take more planning than other things. And so it's going to take a little bit of work, and there's no reason to carry around a bunch of shame while we are doing that work. And it's going to take conversations with one another to make sure that our idea of what would be equitable is shared with other people and that we can find a way to meet the needs of our full community. So you don't have to hide that you sometimes have a fast pass that gets you to the front of a line. You don't have to hide that there are some ways that we benefit from things being a little bit inequitable. If you've been here for a while, you have some benefits that people who just walked in the door don't have. It's okay to name that. And it's okay to work toward spreading the love and making sure that people have access to what they need to feel like full participants and full co-creators of this community. We're singing a lot of things about light today because equity really is, this conversation really is about not making one another feel ashamed about what we're not doing, but bringing to light all of the things that we could be co-creating together. What would it look like for us to consider everyone's needs and not just shrug and say, well, at least I got my needs met, I'm good. It's a call to be our very best for one another, for how we show up. That's what equity is about. It's a call to be our very best to one another for how we show up. And I have a lot of gratitude to Reverend Michael Slack, who gifted us with a song and a prayer that reminds us to hold one another in this vision of equity. The words for this are in your order of service. But it reminds us that we are light to one another, and we don't do this alone, but as a community of faith, we want to be light and love in one another's lives so that what we create is something we are collectively proud of and collectively affirming as a faith community. So I'll sing these couple of short verses and then I'll invite you to sing with me. May I be light in you. May you be light in me. Into our hearts, into our souls, let love abide. Second verse's melody is very similar. May I be love in you. May you be love in to the world for all time. Let's sing all of that together. May I be light in you. May you be light in me. Into our hearts, into our souls, let love abide. May I be love in you. May you be love in me. From this place out to the world for all time.
Out of a spirit of love we come as ourselves. We come with the wisdom and blessings of our bodies, minds, and spirits. We come with the wildest dreams of our ancestors for joy, rest, and play. May we come to know this love fully. From a spirit of grace we move out of a world sometimes more death-dealing than life-giving, and systems not built for our thriving, and into more people, places, books, song, prayer, and communities that honor and respect all that makes us who we are. May the work of our hearts and the passing of time shift this world into care and accountability. From a spirit of righteous anger, we rage and cry and scream and wish and need. We fix our deepest emotions and weary souls on the possibility of a just world, humane conditions, and a life that offers us what we most hope for. May we give ourselves permission over and over to allow our bodies to know what's right for us, to honor what's best for us, to live into what is truest for us. Into a spirit of power we rise to what is truest and best for humanity. Rise to who we can become, rise to possibility, rise to a knowing that comes from the depths of our beings. Rise to life, rise to hope, rise to joy, rise to justice, rise to healing, rise to love at the center of all things. May it be so.
Let's sing those two verses again. May I be light in you. May you be light in me. Into our hearts, into our souls, let love abide. May I be love in you. May you be love in me. From this place out to the world for all time. Amen and blessed be. I want to share a few things with you before we head down to brunch today. And the first is, I haven't been stepping up during the offering time and letting you know about the gratitude that we have received from other organizations that we support. So I wanted to make sure you know that the Hitchcock Center for Women sent a letter of gratitude for the $760 that we raised for them at one of our Sunday morning plate offerings. I'll try to do a better job of making sure you know the outcome of those offerings and the organizations that we're supporting, because that is one of the biggest ways that we express our value of equity and justice out in the larger community, is through our contributions to organizations that are doing that work right here in our neighborhood. I also want to thank our ministry teams for getting your budget requests in a little earlier than usual. We are doing a different thing with our budget this year and budgeting before the stewardship, so hopefully our stewardship time is going to help cast vision, kind of the way that we were doing a little bit today. Cast vision for the year ahead, for what we hope to create and what we will be stewarding together. So thank you for shifting your timelines a little bit to make sure that information was in. Our listening circles are scheduled for the month of February. That'll be in next week's newsletter. Registration for those will be online. There's some little bit.lys that you'll be able to use for that. We try to limit those circles to about a dozen people, so if you want to participate in one of those, please do register ahead of time. We haven't had to turn anybody away yet, but we want to make sure that in those circles people have a chance to share fully. So watch for that. The Greater Cleveland Congregation's core team has a really important community action on February 20th. This is related to the March 19th primary election, which is going to have a big influence on the future of youth bindovers in our area, and this is a specific area of focus for us and our partner spiritual communities in Greater Cleveland congregations. You can sign up today or next week in the fellowship hall after the service to make sure our core team knows you'll be there. They're looking for 35 people from our congregation to participate in that action. So don't think that this is something that other people have got handled. You can be a part of this too. And who are we seeing today? Lori Albright is one of the people over here, and Bob Stabe may not be in this room. He may be already downstairs. So, and Pam is back here as well. Sorry, Beth Austin is back here as well. I didn't give you a microphone, so I couldn't hear. Bev Austin is also here. Wave one more time, Bev, so that we connect a name, the right name with the right face. Bev Austin is there. Sorry, Bev. Brunch today. Sumptuous food, sliders of all kinds. There is a vegan option from Harry's Kitchen Crew and the Leadership Development Committee, which you may recognize from their antenna. Are going to be leading us in a congregational marketplace where we'll be able to explore how we can tap into our interconnectedness and meet the needs of one another and our community. It's going to be a pretty exciting experience, so I hope you're able to stick around for brunch today. As we leave this place, may we rise into a spirit of hope and a spirit of the responsibility that is ours to do within the boundaries of our own lives to create greater equity in the places where we live and work and breathe and play. And may this place be a place where all of us know that all of us care for one another. Amen, and blessed be.
Please join me with our extinguishing the chalice words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Change you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see in the world. And change will come to you. Be the voice you want to hear in the world. Be the voice you want to hear in the world. Be the voice you want to hear in the world, and change will come to you. Be the light you want to shine in the world. Be the light you want to shine in the world. Be the light you want to shine in the world, and change will come to you. Be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see in the world. And change will change will come to you. And change will come to you.
Thank you, Astrid.